everyone, welcome back to the studio. Let's get started on the final video demonstration for this piece toward the falls. We will basically just finish off with finishing marks. We will still have a bit to do down here in the lower area, and I do just want to say that there was a little glitch with my videotaping, and so it will appear that I did finish some of this off video, and I apologize for that, but you'll still get the idea. We've covered a lot of content in this month's video. Without further ado, let's get started. Back in, just like that. And I also noticed that needs to, there we go. That one branch, I was working around it, and that's never good because then it leaves a halo. Okay, I think what I want to do now is, before I go much farther, I want to start establishing some of this area. It's really the only part of the piece that doesn't have at least you know, mid-tone in it. So there is a lot of foliage. So I'm not going to try to paint it all, but what I will do is really look at the lights and darks. I see that there's a bush here, and then there's a lighter where the light is coming in and hitting down in here. It's quite a bit brighter, which will be nice because we can actually use to our advantage where the light hits to help lead the eye up. So let's give it a go. I'm going to find some color to put in there. I'm actually going to start with quite a dark, kind of a grayish brown for some of these ferns that are coming up. I'm not going to fully establish this area because I still need to do a teeny bit more back in here. But I just want to get some of the color in. It's bothering me that there's nothing there really. Those plants are actually quite a bit cooler, those ferns, and some of the trees, which is interesting. Since they're in the foreground, things tend to get warmer, but you know, that's not a hard and fast rule. And I say rules are meant to be broken once you understand the rules. I think I may still need to go a bit darker, but this is a good color. I like this color. I am going to put in a little bit more darks though first, just so that there's something for that color to really lay on. And I'm almost, it's like I can see an S, so I'm really going to kind of do that with this dark. I'm just using a mid-toned green. Just like that. Really want to get it down into here. And a little bit over here. There we go. I'm not trying to be too careful. It's going to stick out onto the path a little bit. It's not, we don't want to stay in the lines. This still obviously needs work. Okay. I'm going to, now that I've got that in, I'm going to start putting a little bit, just a little bit of an indication of these because I want to. But I don't want to go too far with it because I need to make sure that I've got my road established, my path established, and this area back here. I just want to see what it's going to kind of be. Getting some of those marks in is going to help me see it. Not even really trying to, I'm just making dashes and dots. There we go. That's good for now. Okay. If I really squint my eyes, something that has been bothering me is still this upper area. And, you know, I think I'm going to just add a little bit more, a few more marks up there. I'm going to go a little bit warmer. And, you know, part of, I think, what the problem is that I have indeed started to lose those beautiful sunlit areas on the branches. And I really liked that color I had before. I used this oranger color, and I'm going to go back in with that. I like that. Put a little bit of it over here. We might even put this into some other areas in the painting, just to create some unity. Bring some over into this tree a little bit. It's a natural place for it to be, really. I have to remind myself to vary my marks, otherwise I'm left-handed. I just tend to hold it in a certain way. I've got to be careful not to do that, to vary the marks, to keep it looking natural. Whoop, that one got a little crazy. I am going to establish some of the light in this area back here. So I'm going to come in with a light. I'm going to use both a light and a cool and a warm color back here, because this bush has both in it to my eye. Work a little bit around this. I'm probably going to reestablish that trunk just a bit. And I don't want to work around the trunk too much. It'll look like a halo, so I'm going to have to be careful about that. Go in, I need to find a neutral of about that same value I was just using. Like that. I'm going to bring that over a little bit too while I'm thinking about it. Here is, you know what, I can see that I need a little bit more dark right there. That's really going to help establish where that fir tree ends, and the light on those trees below it, or the bushes below it, I mean, begins. So there's a little bit of cool in there. It even comes up, really, this color comes up into here in a few areas. Don't want to be too careful. It's easy to try to get to be too careful, and then it doesn't look good. Although I will say I don't like how I have gone up that far. That's the wrong color. Back. Oops. These blue earths are so very soft. I adore them, but they are very soft, and you have to have a light touch or they crumble. Okay, I'm going to come in with some warmer colors down in here. The goal for me, which I don't feel that I've particularly accomplished so far in this piece, is to do the minimal amount of layering. And sometimes it's like magic and it happens. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm doing this on the fly. I did not do a study first. I've never painted this scene before. I didn't pick out my palette first. Sometimes I guess it's true that I could be a bit of a lazy painter in that regard. I just get so excited about painting, I want to go in and do it. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that, except that occasionally this will happen and I'll end up using a lot more materials, a lot more pastel, and other things, because I didn't really have a plan first. Now, since I have this in my hand, I'm going to work on, I love this beautiful bunch of light here that comes around this tree, and we need to get that in. It's a major part of the piece. It really digs right in to this tree. Comes over here and down. Trying to use different strokes. Okay, and I may even go a little bit lighter. I need to step back. And I can see that I do need to go a little bit lighter. But before I do that, I'm going to come back into this area, and that's too dark. I want to, I really need to show that this tree, where the back of it is. And it's, what I mean by that is I need to negative paint so that you can see that the tree, there's a bunch of little branches in here, and I don't need to indicate all of them, but I want you to be able to see that there is light and air in there. And what that may mean doing is using a few more branches. I'm not sure yet. What I do want to do is come back up, and there went my, that tells me I'm pushing a little too hard. Gotta be careful. Come back in and layer a little bit with my darks on this tree. And a lot of that is that some of these pastels, I have not used those edges. So those edges tend to break pretty easily. But it's just part of the deal. It's not anything to get upset about. Okay. I'm just now looking at little things that, you know, I'll often, if I see something that bothers me, I will correct it while I'm looking at it and thinking about it, because I don't want to forget. I might forget about it later. And I was just noticing right there was a hard edge I really didn't like, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I am also just going to do a few more edges. I'm just feeling I'm not loving that upper area, so just working that a little bit more. Sometimes it's truly just find the right color, or you do a few strokes that really changes everything. Sometimes it's not that easy, but I do find that if I keep working at it, usually it's going to be too light. I can find what I'm looking for. You know what this really might need up here is just some dark branches. So I am going to go for that, because if you look, there's quite a few of them actually. There's actually a tree right there, and there's some branches hanging out. Let's take that away. I like that. It gives it a little bit of a frame. I want to just bring some very light touches of an indication of some branches up here, and I think that might be, instead of continuing to work and work and work on these colors, I think it's something else. It's just, that's not working. So it's something else. And I suspect that it's just needing some darks. That can often be what the problem is. You just, you know, you want to like it, you're saying it's so close, but something's off. Squint your eyes, and it could very likely be the value is off. And I am finding that I think that that's part of what the problem was. So, back in and slightly cover just a teeny bit of that so that it doesn't look artificial. And I'm going to leave it alone because it's hard to sometimes see what's going on when you're in the midst of it. So let's move to a different part of the painting. One thing I noticed is that I do want to blur out this edge a little bit here. So I'm going to take a few neutrals. And this might work. Let's take a look. That's not the right color. I'm going to come in with something like this and just, I want to blur that out just a little bit more. There we go. That's pretty much, that's good actually. And also over here, I want to add some of those colors in. I don't want just a blob of red here. I want these colors to meld. Might be time to work on that area, or focal area. Probably, it's a little light. Come in with a little bit more darks. I want some branches in here. Reestablish that guy. Came down too far, but I'll fix that later. Reestablish some branches up in there. And just some general darks. Started to lose them. Darks are so important. There we go. Okay. Let's start to get this area right here going. Come in with another light back here. It's not that different, and I might lighten that up with a warm, but for now I'm okay with that. What I do want to do is bring some light behind this tree here to create some depth. So I want to stay on that line of that horizon. That's not quite light enough, but there is more light shining over here. I can see it in the picture than here, so I'm going to use a warmer tone and just create a little bit of light to show that there is something going on back there. Let me step back and take a look at that. I'm also going to do that over here, and I had started to, but it didn't get finished. So let's move it over to here. And you can see I'm not carefully drawing. I would rather make a mistake and go in and correct it than to be in there very carefully, because as much as possible, because that's what creates an artificial look. You know, it's not always easy to achieve. It takes practice. And I'm certainly still constantly practicing. I am going to add a touch of this color into this background area that already had the light in it, just to create some unity. And I think a little bit of it into this grass. I'm going to work on this edge right here. And I'm going to start with my dark neutral. I'm actually going to come in with a little bit of this very dark neutral that I had put into. In fact, I know that I used it as a dark, I think, in the base of some of the trees to start, but I'm going to use it as a little bit of an edge along this pathway, between pathway and the forest, because it's a violet, and because I tried to keep this a warm painting, dominantly warm, even a violet's going to appear cooler, you know, than it would in another piece. Green and violet can appear either warm or cool depending on what they're next to. I'm going to put a little bit of that in this tree, and I think that's lovely. And I think that if I do that in a few strategic places of these trees, that could really be a game changer. I'm going to bring a little bit of it up into here, and I'm going to tap. So I'm trying not to get in front of the camera. It makes it a little bit awkward at times. I'm usually right when I'm doing something very intense and careful, I'll be right in front of it, but I like that. I like that color. That's nice. That really achieves what I was hoping to achieve in my tree. Okay. In fact, what I may do is slightly carry that up and tap it to soften the edge of that light on the trunk. In fact, a little bit more right there. Okay. I'm going to come in with a super bright yellow right in here, because that is a focal area. It's really, you know, these two areas will help bring us around the painting, and this may end up being my main focal area. I'm not sure. It's okay to have some co-stars, you know, going on. I don't want to have competitors, but let's see what happens. This is definitely brighter. I think it's going to end up being the focal point, but I do want to give this a little bit of a pop. So if I look, I want to actually get it right. I don't want it right next to that very bright far away area. I want there to be a dark between them to show the distance. So I'm going to actually add a teeny bit there. And what I may do, this is the dark green, I want to add just a touch like that so it looks like there's a tree back there. And now I can come in with a very bright. And my tooth is getting a little worn. I need to brush some off. I've overworked that area. I'm going to come back in. Because I'm using a terry Ludwig, they're not as soft as my blue earths, and I could have come in just with the blue earth, but I happened to pick this one, so I didn't. And then I wouldn't have had to brush that off, but it's no big deal either way. I'm going to strategically take a little bit of this color and probably move it around the piece a little bit, and in fact, I want a little bit of a brighter orange up in these trunks, but it's not quite time for that yet. I do like how there is a little bit of this beautiful yellow peeking through where the sunlight's hitting, so I don't want it to be quite as bright as what I just put down, but I am going to bring in a warmer, darker yellow to indicate that. Back in here, it's this little sliver of light here. Comes over like that. And that might be a little saturated actually. So what I might do is just come on in with a little bit of a more neutral tone in there. And as well up here, just to unify. I'm going to bring a little bit of that over here. Just making some intuitive marks. Smudging out what I don't like or want to soften and not draw so much attention to. This area, because there is so much attention drawn to it, needs a little bit more definition in the dark. So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to keep it fairly neutral because it's farther back. Just an indication that there's something going on back there, like that. Maybe a teeny bit like that. And oops, wrong color, hold on. I do want to make sure that you can see that this is the foreground tree, and I came over a little far, so I need to find the right color to reestablish that. May just be as simple as just blurring that out a bit, and that's fine. Okay, I'm fairly happy with what's going on up there, and I think at this point I'm going to really just leave it alone and start working on my lower section, which honestly should go quite a bit quicker. There's just not as much going on down here, and it's just a lead in to the focal area, so I'm not going to put as much detail down here. So I do want to get some lights in, see how this looks. It's a warm pink. I like it. I'm going to put some of that definitely back here because it's kind of showing where the light is hitting. Tapping it, making sure that it's parallel, because if I put it one way or the other, it will make the path appear to be slanted, like you're walking you know, tilting one way or the other, and I don't want that. This was a pretty straight path. Turning the pastel so that I'm not always making the same marks, and trying to keep my marks random. I'm going to come back in with a little bit of my darker color that I had in the path originally to just tap, and I don't want to overwork it, but I do want to make it dappled and a little bit random. There's not a lot of obvious shadows going on, so I'm not that concerned about creating specific shadows in this particular scene. There are some shadows back here, which I might do farther back here, but in the front, in the foreground, there's really not. And so I am going to bring a little bit of this path color into the foliage here. It'll help make it all fit together. I do want to bring an in-between color in, which I have. I've used it in the past, and it's a nice mauve mid-tone. Paths can get tricky because you can easily overwork them, lose the freshness. We don't want to do that. In fact, what I may do is bring a little bit of orange because I like the look of this paper underneath shining through. And if I find a color that's very similar, see, look at that, that's very similar. It's a little more saturated than I would like. There's almost the exact same color as the paper itself. And to incorporate that into some of the painting would really help with the unity of the piece. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to scumble it slightly and tap it into certain areas that I think I can get away with it. Okay. And neutrals are king because they make your bright colors pop, just like we talked about earlier. So, okay, you know, I'm getting close to where I feel this piece is close to a finish. What I do want to do is add some more brights up in the sky. I'm going to leave this alone for a couple of minutes because personally I feel that less is more in a foreground, and while I don't think it's finished and I will be doing a little bit more to it, it's actually close to finished. So I can also see that I need to do a little bit of work here. I don't like that hard edge, and I will be putting some highlights in here. But I really want to make this pop a little bit more. So I'm going to head back up to the sky for a few minutes. And I think one of the ways I'm going to do that is with another color. I'm going to grab that turquoise I was talking about earlier. So let's see how this looks. Might be a little bit dark. I want to grab one, like a value lighter, step up. So let's see here. These two branches could be separated slightly. This is a pretty hard pastel. It's very interesting. Certain pigments are just harder than others. They come out of the ground that way. Certain pigments are very buttery and soft, and certain pigments are very hard. But you just, over time, learn how to work with those different variations of hardness and softness. And I'm going to step back. I want to create more light in this area. Part of that is not overthinking it, like we've talked about. So the way I'm going to approach that is to look at the area that I want to work and then let my hand go in and make some marks. And still being aware of where the branches might be so that I'm not so that I'm not, you know, making an obvious error where, say, a trunk might be. I want my marks to make sense. Uh-oh, that really just cracked. That's okay. It just means that the pastel is earning its keep. I'm going to come back in with my blue. And what I think I might do is add one more branch back there before I come in with my blue. Because that is always my savior. If I don't know where to put my sky holes, what that generally tells me is I need some branches, not always, but it's a general rule that can work for me, is that I need some branches to show me where I might put those. Oops, that's okay. So I see here that there's a tree back here. I'm going to bring that up a little bit because I can work off of it. So if I just bring it up a little like that, excuse me, I can now work around that with some lights. And I'm going to come in darker first. So I'm going to come in with a darker blue. Now I know that that's up here. I don't want to go too far up with those. I don't want to go too crazy with my sky holes, but I want this to be my focal area. So, you know, it's a game. It's figuring out what looks right, getting them in, taking them out. If you get it, and that's where it comes into not having too heavy of a hand. But if you do, brush it out and start over. It's not a big deal. Might be frustrating and more time consuming, but you can still make it work. I'm going to step back. I always step back, especially when I get to this point in a painting. It's so important. So this little branch up here is bothering me. I want to make it look more natural, and that helped. I need to lighten up this area. That's good. Don't want to do too many marks that are similar. I was using the same edge. I want to switch edges around. I want to lighten this area up. And this is starting to look weird. I'm going to step back and look at it. I want to put a little bit of foliage back in there. This is how it is, guys. I mean, you know, this is how I work. So everybody works differently. But for me, I don't expect to make a masterpiece in an hour. It takes time and patience. And if you know me personally, you know that patience is not my virtue. It's probably one of my faults. I'm very impatient, but I have learned the hard way that to create something you're proud of and that you want to look at takes patience. I'm going to come back in with a bit of a lighter value on those trunks. Very carefully. Yet trying to keep it natural. And, you know, it's a challenge because the light is hitting right there, but I don't want it to look so uniform. I'm going to bring a little bit of it down here and touch right there. I'm going to just go ahead and come in with my light. There we go. I want to come in, sorry about that. I want to come in and put an accent up in here. Something very bright to draw the eye. And I think we're going to start with a darker color. Oh, that's very dark. It's so interesting to see a pastel in its casing and then to see it on your paper. It's incredibly different because of how the colors interact together. We can talk about that some other time. I need to find a different color. I'm going to give this a try. It's a very bright pink. It's a blue earth. I've actually never used it. So let's give this one a go. I'm going to very gently just do a swipe and a dash. Let's take a step back and see how that looks. I may have been a bit timid with it, so I'm gonna give it another go. And I may bring that down just a little bit for a couple of shadow areas, or I'm sorry, for a couple of highlight areas where the sun is hitting. And the way I'm going to do that is by lightly tapping. I do not want to make a mark with it. It would not look natural, especially with this bright color. But the tapping can create a very beautiful effect. Slightly blurring that out. I'm going to step back. I'm going to bring that color down just a bit into this area right below this focal point, just so that it's not standing out like a stripe. I like that. The other thing I'm going to do is brighten up even just a little teeny bit more, something right in here to bring us up and around, just because this is our focal area. So let's lighten up this just a touch. Couple of touches like that. I'm not sure I love that. Well, you know, I may make adjustments, but I'll show you the final piece in a picture. I'm not sure. I usually take a day to look at a painting and decide if it's finished. It's very difficult, in my opinion, although it's very tempting to want to finish a piece as soon as you think it's done and say, oh, look what I did. But you're not giving yourself the time to step back and look at it if you do that. And inevitably, I will, you know, think I'm finished and post something on social media, and sure enough, within a few hours, I'm going back and taking a photo anew because I have made a change and realized, oh my goodness, how did I not see this huge problem in the piece? And it just takes stepping back, walking away, doing something else, and coming back and looking at it again. This is the point too where it's easy to overwork it, and that's a real danger. I'm going to step back. I've heard this rule long ago that when you're 80% done, if you think you're 80% done, stop. And I think it's a pretty good rule, because if we're enjoying what we're doing, we'll just keep going and going and going, and pretty soon we've ruined it. It takes a lot of self-control to stop before you ruin it. And I'm at that point. I do think I could work a little bit more down here. So I'm going to stop up here, and I'm going to move down and make a few more marks, and I think I'm close to done. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to squint my eyes. I'm going to look at what's happening here. And I think I could just bring a few more highlights in to cast our eye upward. And even some warms. If I look at this reference photo, look at that. There's some warms in there. So I think just to be safe, I'll start a little darker and a little more neutral, but I will put some warms in to help lead our eye up. And let's see what happens. Again, just tapping like that. I'm going to actually bring, I like these dark ferns that are in shadow. I want to bring those in. I'm going to do that with a very neutral dark green. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of neutral colors in your palette, you guys. If you you know, want to paint natural looking landscapes, at least I'm in the Pacific Northwest of North America in the USA. So to me, you know, I have to have, there's so many greens. That's all that's around me. Sometimes I'm jealous of people that I see that have these gorgeous big skies and canyons and things, and I don't have that here. You know, I have trees. I have a bunch of trees and a bunch of green. And I love it. It's absolutely gorgeous. But I have to work with what I have. So for me, having a lot of neutral toned yellow, what you might look at as yellow or brown, those are, or even a blue, those are green. Those could be green. So the green range is huge. On some other video, I'll show you the palette that I work with often, and you'll see how different some of the greens, you might say, oh no, that's blue, but to me it's green. So I'm going to step back. I'm going to add a few finishing touches right here. I'm going to come in with a slightly lighter and brighter color. I'm not sure that it will be correct, but again, it's not so important that it's the right color, is that it's the right value. And that might be a little bit warm, but since it's a warm, I'm trying to create a dominantly warm painting. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm going to go with this. I was thinking that it's a little bit too warm, but you know what, who cares? I'm going to go with it because I'm trying to create a warm painting. I'm going to bring some of these out into the path. I want there to be overlap. This is the fun part. Oh, there went another piece. I'm not going to waste that though, you guys. I'm going to save it. I actually have this, I don't know if you can see this, but I have a whole bunch of broken pastels that I save. That will be used. Okay. We're close to finished.